Uh, right. So my name is Zhe Wu. I'm a reporter with San Francisco Public Press. We are a nonprofit newsroom in San Francisco covering everything about San Francisco. It's a very interesting city. And my beat is mostly this very vibrant and complex Asian American community in the city. And here you are with the League of Women Voters of San Francisco. So the League of Women Voters of San Francisco is a nonpartisan political nonprofit that defends democracy, that provide educations, encouraging people to vote in election and participate in government. They also engage in advocacy to influence public policy that benefit the community. And that's why we're here. And before we started, we're going to go through a little bit housekeeping first. So this event will last 30 minutes. That means that you need to put your question in a chat, and the volunteer of the League of Women Voter will collect them and give it to me. But we might not have the time to go over all of your questions, and we very apologize for that. The event will be recorded and will be posted to the LWVSF League of Women's Voter of San Francisco YouTube channel in a few days with a link on their website, lwvsf.org. So today we're here with Chair Janet Tavo. Jen, Chair Tavo is the chair of the board of director for the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, SFMTA. And prior to her current role, she was a longtime small business owner and served as the president of the Green Park Merchant Association. So, welcome, Chair Tavo. And today she's going to give us an inside look of what the SFMTA board does and how this decision impact our daily life and how you can get involved in the process. So the first very natural question that I have, and I have it for a long time, is what's the purpose of MTA board? How is that different from transportation agency in other city and county?
The SFMTA board is responsible for making all the final decisions that relate to the MTA. We do delegate some decisions, such as smaller contracts and hiring and the many, many, many operational decisions that have to occur in an agency of this size. But large policy decisions, the balancing of the budget, the senior staff, specifically the director of transportation, all of those decisions are ours, along with providing the MTA staff with policy decisions that guide their actions. And the SFMTA is unique, as you alluded to, because unlike I think most or possibly even all other cities, our Municipal Transportation Agency also oversees all of the street design and parking enforcement for the city. This occurred through an amendment of our charter in 1999 that was passed by San Francisco voters. And so that gives the SFMTA a really broad scope of work. So,
Wow. So it's like not just the transportation, like Muni, the bus that we take, it's
mhm.
also cover parking and the street. When we are walking, that's part of SFMTA's role to help us keep us safe. Um, I'm a little bit curious about your role as a board. Like, what do a board member do? How is it like?
Oh, it's incredibly, it's such an honor to be able to do this work, and the colleagues that I have on the board represent a really broad um, uh, areas of expertise. We have someone from who works in housing. We have people from various communities. The Asian American community is an example, and we're all multifaceted people. My seat is reserved for somebody from the small business community, and that's how I was chosen for this role. It's uh, it's a bit of a pressure cooker in the sense that the decisions that we take impact everybody in San Francisco, and people have really, really strong opinions about what the agency should or shouldn't be doing. And there is a certain amount of polarization in those opinions. Um, and it has an impact on everyday San Franciscans every day. Every time you use our streets or our transportation system, or you receive a delivery, or you are, expecting a friend to arrive. It's all tied together. But for me personally, I really I derive a lot of meaning from that, and I really find it very energizing and inspiring to be able to work on these issues.
Interested. Is there like I mean I want to dive into a little bit more about what are some of the that decision that you mentioned that is a hot topic that you would got like as a board member of MTA would get to decide. Like tell me a little bit about what kind of decision that SFMTA board make.
Well, yesterday we had a hearing. We have our hearings on the first and third Tuesday every month. And uh, typically, some months during the summer we only meet once a month. Um, and we the items that we heard yesterday, just as an example, were a street design um, item related to Larkin Street in the Tenderloin. The Tenderloin is part of what is called the high injury network. Actually, the entire Tenderloin neighborhood is part of the high injury network that has the vast majority of injury causing and unfortunately fatality causing collisions. Uh, these are 15% of streets in San Francisco, and they're responsible for 68% of those collisions. So we heard from staff, and we made a final approval on a plan for uh, uh, traffic engineering solutions that mitigate risks to pedestrians and cyclists and drivers. And so we approved that project yesterday. And we also heard an item from our chief financial officer. She is, we're hearing from her a lot as we prepare to pass a balanced budget for the upcoming 2-year budget cycle that will be 2026, 27, starting in July, and 27, 28. We do the budget in 2-year increments. And so that was our hearing yesterday in terms of decisions that were taken.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It seems like and I want to go a little bit more into it. Like it seems like a decision would be made in the board. And then I'm curious, like, how's that decision is going to translate into our everyday life? Like how's that going to carry out throughout the agency? It seems like the staff is going to come in with a report and what's going to go, are they going to execute it? And then like, how's that process like?
So, well, just taking the street project that I mentioned as an example, the work that leads up to it coming to our board is actually in this case it was many years of work. The addressing safety issues in the Tenderloin has been a very long and a long process that has involved the whole neighborhood. So everyone who lives and works and travels through that neighborhood has been impacted by the work that happened. But before this particular one segment of one street project came to us, the traffic engineers and the traffic planners looked at the conditions on the ground and made their recommendation. They did a great deal of community outreach through a variety of means. The project went through a number of changes. A lot of those had to do with curb color, which is what are the parking regulations on the street, how many blue zones. Well, we have certain laws that we have to follow about blue zones, but where are the blue zones going to be located, how many commercial loading spots should be, what the hours should be, all of these conversations with the stakeholders in the community occurred, and the staff came to us with that final proposal. In this case, we didn't have any amendments to offer, and there was very little that we as a board, which is unusual, that we as a board heard from community members that might have prompted us to amend the legislation. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's very interesting to hear how like a project got study, something got studied and it got proposed and then went through a public process where board member are going to either make amendment or like basically have a say on letting it happen. And going off from that, I'm curious, like how can we as regular San Franciscan engage in this work? How can we have a say in a decision like that, like a street? In this case, a street project.
Oh, there's so many ways to engage. A lot of them are built into the process. I neglected to mention that before it comes to the MTA board, all projects like that are heard at an engineering hearing that's open to the public. People who are impacted, there's a public notice that's posted that lets people know that there's going to be a hearing about a particular project. This is in addition to the outreach that happens before it gets to an engineering hearing. Um, and and there are a number of bodies in addition to the uh, MTA board that offer opportunities for, regular San Franciscans like myself to participate. I was looking before our call today, and I was noticing that the SFMTA Citizens Advisory Council has a number of vacant seats. Those are appointed by 11 are appointed by our district supervisors, and 4 are appointed by our mayor. Um, there's also a community advisory committee on the San Francisco County Transportation Authority, and that is the transportation body that is made up of our supervisors. So our supervisors serve as the board of the SFCTA, and they hold the purse strings for many of the projects that happen at MTA. And so they have an additional citizens group that advises and learns about things. There's, reading about transportation in the news is a great way to keep up. It's something, as I know this isn't part of your regular beat, but the media pays a great deal of attention to what happens at the MTA and the other bodies that are charged with making decisions around transportation issues. So becoming informed. The MTA has it's an excellent website, but there's the scope of the material that's being presented and the historical information that needs to remain there make it a little daunting. What I personally, just a little pro tip, I've found that a Google search is a better way of getting to the page that you'd like to get to at the MTA website than using the internal search function. But if you're interested in a particular project that maybe is in your neighborhood, you can look it up on our website, and there's a little button at the top right of every page. Every project has its own page that describes what's happening, what the timeline is associated with it, what meetings have occurred, what meetings are scheduled. And there's a button at the top right that you can click that says, send me updates, and you'll get automatic updates on that particular project. And I have done that a number of times for things that I've been tracking closely. And it's not an overwhelming number of emails that I receive about it, but it is really helpful to be kept in the loop like that in an automatic way.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. So it seems like there are so many different layers of engagement that you can do. You can like if you are interested in one project, you can go through like the project page to keep an update of the information about it and even get engaged in some of the community outreach session or hearing session, or
Mhm.
maybe make public comment in some of the hearing. And or you can actually be even more engaged by getting into some of the citizens advisory council and committee. And sounds like it sounds like there's like a lot of way where people can kind of join and bring their input in to be heard. So now we are getting going to some of the more interesting territory about like what is happening right now. I know that one of the hot topic and which you allude to a little bit is the budget shortfall that deficits that we are in right now in MTA. Like for those people who don't follow that like closely, what is that? Why do we have a budget deficit, and what are some of the plans to it?
Well, we have a very significant budget deficit that is going to become realized if nothing is done in our upcoming budget cycle that I talked about. So the budget that begins in July of 2026. If we do nothing, we would have a deficit of $307 million annually out of a $1.5 billion budget. I We have already been working on this proactively for several years, and had we not done that work, it would be a $440 million annual budget deficit. And the reason that we have this budget deficit is largely due to the pandemic. Our budget, our revenue sources to fund transit, which is the largest part of our budget, running a transit agency, and especially a robust transit agency, which I think, San Franciscans by and large are very proud to have, um, is very, very expensive. And so uh, we pay for it through revenue from the San Francisco General Fund, so that's taxes. We pay for it through fares on Muni, and parking fees, and then government grants from the state, federal, and local government. Those are often capital projects. So the streets project that I was talking about earlier, or a bus procurement contract, those are often paid for through grants. But operating revenue is largely supported on the local level with through the tax base, fares, and parking garages, and all of those revenue sources are down since the pandemic. We and the other and this is not unique to San Francisco. This happened nationwide, and we and the other transit agencies were fortunate to receive federal assistance during the pandemic, and we those funds were very carefully stewarded up until the present time, and they will have been exhausted as of July. So we have not regained our original funding sources, and we lose that significant federal help in July. And that is why it's referred to as a fiscal cliff. Um, and then meanwhile, inflation is at historic levels. And so our costs have been rising even as our revenues have not been recovering quickly enough.
Wow, it seems like it's kind of hard to make the current operation sustainable. What are some of the plan for MTA right now with the budget deficits?
Well, it's a strong mixture of working on our current revenue sources and having our particularly transit is has rebounded, quite significantly. But if it's going to grow and we're going to increase our fare revenue, we have been really focused on making the transit as fast, frequent, reliable, safe, and clean as possible, and so that we can attract as many riders as possible to have our fare revenue rebound. We've also heard a lot uh, from my fellow citizens about fare compliance, and that's a somewhat complex topic because what is perceived as fare compliance and what actually is happening don't always match what people are seeing. There are a lot of people who don't tag in for good reason, but the public perception is that fare compliance is very low. I mean, uh, every most conversations that I have with people is nobody pays on Muni, which is I can attest it's not the case. We have 80% fare compliance, and part of the reason for that is that although we've had a hiring freeze at the MTA since August of last year, with one exception, which is fare compliance inspectors. And those people are on our highest used routes, making sure that everybody's paying their fare and issuing tickets if people have not. So we've had a significant increase in our fare revenue as a result, which is reassuring that that's been effective.
I
Yeah.
have, I'm just going to jump in quickly. Sorry, Zhe.
Oh,
We've had a couple of questions come in, and one that I think is very relevant to what you're talking about is also a priority for the League of Women Voters, which is equity and who uses transit, who really relies on transit, and how MTA considers that. And so, because Tarlov is talking about thinking about fares, I'm curious. I know that there's fines and fees justice even within San Francisco government that you collaborate with. Could you talk a little bit more about how you think about equity, Chair Tarlov?
Oh, sure. I really appreciate that question. Well, one thing is that we have many subsidies for people who are lower income. All youth are free up until the age of 18 on Muni. So that captures a lot of people who are lower income, and also uh, serves us very well in establishing our future transit customers, hopefully paying customers as economic vitality is fostered in the city. There are a number of programs that allow people who have experienced fines to either pay over time or have part of the fine excused. If someone is in a low income category and they qualify for free Muni, and maybe they just haven't signed up for it, they'll be counseled by the fare inspector to about how they can sign up for those programs. Some of them are free or reduced fares, and there are many, many programs. I'm not going to be able to cover them all, but I think that in transit, the topic of equity is just tremendously important, because car ownership is out of reach for many low income people, and so providing robust transit is a lifeline for people who need to go to work, go to medical appointments, visit family. And so having that be as accessible as possible to everyone is a very high priority at the agency.
Thank you. And I don't want to take up too much more time. We've only got a few more minutes. So, Zhe, I'm going to turn it back over to you for maybe the last question or two.
Yeah. Some of the last question, I think you already covered a lot I mean, first of all, I just want to know that, wow, I didn't know that so the fare inspector we're going to reverse back when it comes to like people who are eligible for free muni, and so that's good to know, great information to know. And going back, I mean, maybe the last question, let's go into Vision Zero, and what is that, and what's your role in the board and what in this vision?
Right. And sorry to go back to just really quickly. I don't want to send a wrong information. I'm not an expert on exactly what the fair compliance officers do, or how it works for someone who maybe received a fine and they qualify, if that is reversed. But I know that there is an effort placed on helping people. Not it's a, we need to fund the agency, so we need people to pay fares, but we also do not want to be penalizing people who are vulnerable either. So it's a difficult balancing act. Vision Zero um, is our is a national effort to reduce, or, as the name implies, eliminate traffic fatalities in the United States. It's a very lofty goal, and there are a lot of headwinds that make it challenging. But San Francisco, the Board of Supervisors formally adopted it as a as a policy in the city. The MTA has it guides our work. So when we were talking about the streets project on Larkin Street earlier, that's Vision Zero project, and we're paying attention to that area because of our understanding of the data around the high injury network. And it's been it's been very challenging. We just completed a 10-year cycle in 2024, and our board is scheduled to see the updated Vision Zero policy toward the end of this year. We're waiting to hear from the health department about what are the updated statistics about the has the higher injury network shifted, for example, or are we still seeing the same problems in the same place? We do know that when we study areas where we have uh, gone in with a street safety focus, there we see a positive impact. Where we don't see a positive impact is in the overall numbers. We are far from zero, and in fact, last year was one of the highest years of fatalities that we have had since we made the commitment to work toward zero, which is heartbreaking because all of those fatalities were, people with families, and we had the particularly heartbreaking situation in West Portal where an entire young family was killed in an accident. So the urgency around Vision Zero is very high. We have a committee on our board that is working on this upcoming updated policy, and one of the most important things that has happened is that San Francisco was the first city to be able to implement a pilot program for 33 speed cameras that have been spread around the city by district and also by location to sites such as schools or senior centers, um, and also guided by the high injury network data. And this is just since it's been implemented in August, is reducing speed, and we know that speed is the number one reason that people are killed. If you're in a collision with a car and the car is going 20 miles an hour, your chances of survival are far greater than if it's going 5, 10, 15 miles an hour faster. So,
Wow. Yeah, that is a very serious issue. I learn something more about our city every day. I didn't know that is happening. But wow, thank you so much, Chertal, for being our guest today. So we were gonna put a link for the agenda. The next board meeting, I believe, is in October.
October 7th.
October 7th. So if people are interested in attending, they can go and join the conversation. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming joining us today. We will be doing another LWVSF League of Women's Voters of San Francisco session on Tuesday, September 25th at 6 p.m. about a new LWVSF transportation equity community and what our next step will be and how to get involved. There will be a link in the chat and share it in the follow-up email to all the attendees. And please email volunteer@lwvsf.org to learn about the LEACH program, volunteer opportunity, and also sign up for more events like this one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.